Games, board games. We might be talking about renting games, but we're not gonna shout. I am starting off this morning talking to Glenn, who's doing some dancing, and we will talk about everything that is in our lives, mainly board gaming. Rent, shuffle, and roll. It's all about renting those board games so other people can get to playing. Board games is what we're talking about. Board games, and I'm not gonna shout. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. 10 a.m. UK time, which means that it's time for Busy Beats and Board Game Blether. And oh my gosh, I need to change this thing? But yes, it is episode 715. We're meeting Glenn. Hello, Glenn.
Good morning, Bez. How you getting on?
I am doing generally fairly well. It's a bright morning. I wouldn't say no to like a little bit more of a breeze. I'm not gonna lie. Might open up all the windows later today. Like I'm not the best person for. How about you? Are your windows open? Where are you?
Yeah, I suffer in the heat as well. So yeah, windows open and fans on, definitely.
Okay. And we'll be talking about your business that you've got with your partner, Jen, Rent, Shuffle and Roll, which is all about board game rental. And we'll be talking about you. Like, what are some of your childhood memories? How did you get into board games? What are some favorites? And how did you decide to embark upon this business? And a little bit, hopefully, about some of the details. Now, as always, let's start off with some recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights. Recent highlights. So, Glenn, what have you been up to? What are some of the best games you've played in the past week?
Yeah, so me and Jen, we haven't been playing a lot recently, but we actually played Mr. Jack for the first time in the last
Ooh.
couple of weeks, which we'd told to play for years, and loved it. It was really
It's
good.
like the
So
two-player hidden movement. One player's the
Yeah.
police, one player's trying to work out where the other person is, the other one's trying to stay undercover, and it's all
Yeah.
about the grisly murders.
Yeah, neither of us are very good at being Jack yet, but I'm sure we'll get better. But it's a lot of fun. Yeah, so we've been playing a lot of that, but not a huge amount of other board games recently, actually.
Well, I just realised that I forgot to turn my lights on. I do really apologise. Hopefully that's a tiny bit better for folks so they can see my face a wee bit more. There we go. But
Perfect.
yeah, I, as always, like Fridays because Friday is my favourite day. I get to go out to playtest, and yesterday was a special day for me, really starting the LDEC game design contest entry testing in earnest. I had 12 different entries this year. This is one of them. Unfortunately, I forgot to take photos of literally everything, but we played a good 5 different games. And we had so many people. On the right, you see Henry, who brought along 2 of their children. And we were all enjoying this game. And it's really lovely to see how there's still so many games with this deck of cards that I created and people putting so much energy into it. And there's one game, like this one was a relatively simple thing, but even within that simple framework, we tried out 3 rules variations because of, oh yeah, what's about this? And as always, it's brilliant getting the feedback, seeing what people think. Lovely day. Friday is my favorite day of the week because of human interaction and playtesting. So,
Yeah,
so
a lot of playtesting, don't you, Bez?
Every Friday I do, but not as much as I would like. I mean, I do hardly anything as much as I'd like. That's the thing, like, not enough time. I probably go on the internet about as much as I'd like and eat as much as I'd like. But yeah, there's no other way to make sure that your game is good.
Mhm.
I mean, it's all well and good theory crafting it and imagining what it might be like in your head, but when you actually get it onto the table, there's always going to be little bits that surprise you. And even if it doesn't surprise you, if you think, oh, with this game, people probably won't want to trade, and then you realize that, yeah, people didn't want to trade, which is kind of sad because it was meant to be a game about trading. But at least then you've got confirmation, and learning about people's play patterns is the best way to make better games, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, it sounds lovely also that you have that community available to you, that you can explore that as well. You know, it's an incredible resource.
We are very privileged in London, the population density we have here. Whereas I know that over where you are in Aberdeen, I was up there once. This was a few years ago. I want to say maybe 2015, 2016. And at the time, I believe there was basically just the one board game shop. It's board games and comics. And I was like, okay, stood there and I said, oh, can I come over? And it was a wee bit more than I expected, to be honest, traveling from Glasgow to Aberdeen, given the distance. And
it is a bit further up.
But it's a surprising cost. I mean, it's not that long a journey, but it's just costs quite a bit more than some shorter journeys that I've made in my time. Like, honestly, it cost me almost as much as it does coming from London to Glasgow. But yeah, getting there and then playing the game, but then saying, oh, there's not much else here. How are you finding Aberdeen? Are you able to interact with any other board gamers?
Yeah, it's definitely a smaller place for the board game community, but we do have, I believe there's 3 or 4 board game clubs that meet. We go along to one on Sundays. There is now a couple of cafes that are gaming / board gaming themed as well now. And there's still a couple of, well, there's a board game, like you said, and cards and comics shop as well. But yeah, it's certainly not the vibrant hub that we've got in other cities.
I mean, the truth is, with sadly West End Games having now departed from Glasgow like a victim of the 2020, 2021, pandemic, and we're only now coming out of lockdown, I feel like there is the space, hopefully in Glasgow, for someone else to fill in there. And I know Lucky Sparrow Games, I mean, obviously the owners are still around, but it's weird to say rest in peace for a business, but it was like such a lovely thing that had been created. And it is sad how many businesses just went under since the start of 2020.
Yeah, it really is. And well, obviously it's not only in the board game space, it's across, but certainly a lot of
anything where people have to go somewhere. I mean, obviously it's kind of an ideal time for renting, right?
Yeah, it was. And we got into using another rental service during lockdown. We used Lazy Horse when they were around. I don't know if you heard of them. And it was a lifesaver for us. It made us sit around a table still and play new games and have new experiences, which was really important during lockdown. And that's why we got into it.
And is Lazy Horse still around?
No, she unfortunately decided to close. I think it was the middle half of last year. She didn't have the time that she wanted to put into the business. And at that point, me and Jen decided, well, we absolutely love doing it. We don't want to see it go away. And that was the point where we decided to.
So it was basically like, hey, here's something we love and it's gone away. Let's try and step up and make this happen and let's do this ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. We thought we could take the challenge on. And it certainly has been a challenge, but it's been a lot of fun. I'm sure there will continue to be challenges as we go. But yeah, we decided we'd take it on and really give it a good go.
That sounds absolutely delightful. And a quick hello to Jess, who says Jess is on a motorcycle somewhere in Thailand. And congratulations on no longer having COVID. And I hope you don't mind all these love hearts at you and your hair. But yes, Glenn is absolutely new. And fresh guest. So let's crack on and ask Glenn, what do you love in life? What do you think is something underappreciated that may be a brilliant thing? Brilliant thing. What's a little thing which is brilliant?
It's a bit of a hard one. I don't end up with a lot of spare time. When I do have spare time, I spend a fair bit of it doing some miniature painting. One of my friends in Aberdeen is really into his Warhammer, so I try and keep up with him to an extent that we can regularly play games and do that. So that would probably be one of my bigger time sinks outside of work and everything else.
Just taking the time to bring out those details and do, I mean, like just doing those tiny there's a lot of interesting work in coloring. I mean, when I started thinking about art, I was like, yeah, the lines are all of it. And like the coloring, that's not even a thing really. But then you don't appreciate maybe how much something can change based on how it is colored. And there's a reason why there are professional colorists. I mean, like in the comics industry, and why in movies, like there's someone whose job it is to just tweak those colors slightly digitally. Like when you look at Amelie, the film, like the colors used throughout that bring a very different mood. And across the table, if something is dark blacks and reds and all horrible, it's going to give you like a different vibe to if it was like pink and blue. I mean, like both are viable, but it's like what kind of emotion do you want to express with your miniatures on the table? How do you go about picking the color?
I'm not the best painter, but I enjoy the process. It's nice sitting down, planning what you want them to look like, and then achieving something that's at least close to that, if it's not exact. But my friend up here, Stuart, he's very good at adding a lot of like kind of grime and grit to his models, and it gives them a real character that you can feel when you know you're actually playing with them. I kind of just like mine to look like they're just, you know, fresh out the factory, you know, kind of nice and painted up. But I take a lot of inspiration for the colors and things like that from history. So I like a lot of Roman history, Egyptian history and stuff like that. So that comes through in a lot of my army design.
So maybe lots of dusky colors and olives and I guess rusty. Silver doesn't
a lot
rust,
of red
but
as well. Yeah,
muted silvers, I guess, with dirty silver.
Yeah, and a lot of red for the Roman themed stuff, which I'm sure you'll be pleased to hear.
I mean, I do appreciate a bit of red on the table, I'm not going to lie. But as always, I like to remind people to feel free to comment, ask questions from follow. And let's do a really quick bit of questionably quick questions is the next section. It's not an interrogation. It's just the questionably quick question section. So Glenn, minis or meeples?
I would have to go with minis, purely because it's something I've done for a long time, being involved with Warhammer. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love a good meeple as well. But
okay, cards or cubes?
It's a difficult one. I'd probably go with
cubes
cards.
Includes dice.
Yeah, I'd probably go with cards. I like a good card collection game. Although again, there's just such a variety of games out there with both as well.
I mean, of course, all of these questions are kind of, well, why not both? And the truth is, in the world, you can have both. But if you had to choose just one,
I'd probably go with cards. Yeah, sorry, say that one again, Bess.
If you had to choose just one, flavor or rules? So that would be writing and graphics or the rules.
That's a difficult one. I think the rules. I think you can have a game that possibly doesn't look the best on the table, but has fantastic mechanics and makes up for that. Whereas you can have, and there have been games in the past that look incredible, but don't have the rule set to back that up.
At which point you'd probably want to play a different game with those pieces, or maybe just have them up on your wall. True story.
Exactly.
I once bought an album just because it came with 4 little postcards that were the cutest thing ever. And I listened to the album a few times. And this is okay, but like these postcards are like the most adorable thing ever. I don't regret that purchase. It was like during a trip, like 15 years ago now. I was on a holiday somewhere, and it's a great memento of that place. But I can't say that I've listened to the album. But whenever I see that picture on my wall, it's like, yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, but the postcards look good, Bez. So that was the
that's the thing. And at that point, it adds to the aesthetics, it adds to the overall thing, but the game has to be about the agency and the motivations of the player.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, what would you say is the key to a good game?
That's difficult. I think I don't know if anyone has a one single answer for that either, but it's got to be a combination of it. For me, anyway, I like a game that is simple to get into. We can put it on the table and we can understand the kind of core mechanics and play it, immediately. But that there is depth to it later on as well. There is more to learn. It is, playable a second, third, fourth, fifth time. Where, as you continue to learn the rules and get more in depth stuff, that there's more to do and more to play on the table, I suppose.
I guess this is a really interesting thing. Like the word depth, again, it's been something that people discuss. Oh, what does depth even mean? But I think what you say about more to learn, it's definitely a big part of it, as well as maybe having some surprises and discoveries, like saying, oh, wow, that combined with that thing. Or sometimes that can even be new content. For example, if you've got 100 levels and maybe each level it's only worth playing once, that's totally fair. But then each level brings in something new and you keep on going.
Yeah. It doesn't even have to be something as complex as it being, additional rules or content, although that is obviously fantastic. It can just be, learning the strategies of a game, that take time, that you can sit down and you can, for an easy example, you could sit down and play a game of Catan however you want it. But after you've played a couple games, you might start to develop a new strategy of how you play and how you want to, set out your pieces and everything like that. And that development through the game, I think, is really fun.
I mean, honestly, having additional rules and additional levels, whilst it might take time to design those things, it's almost... I'm hesitant to say this because I don't want to offend anyone, but it's almost an easier way to go about adding replayability, whereas that emergent complexity is ultimately the pinnacle of good game design, and I think that's why I believe Go is the best game ever. Speaking of which, have you played Go?
I used to play a lot of Go with my brother. He's very good at it. Unfortunately for me, but I haven't played much recently.
Good enough that you still can't beat them even with a 9-stone handicap.
Yeah, good enough that he beats me every time. Yeah,
even with the 9-stone handicap.
We don't tend to play with a lot of handicap, but I think he would still have a good go at me, even with a strong handicap on my side.
Because that's the thing. Well, one of the things that I love about Go is certainly the emergent complexity, and you learn the relationships between all the stones, or in the example of Catan that you brought out, learning the viability of these different resources and how roads can block each other and what that actually means for the game, not just what the rule means, but once you've internalized that, thinking, oh, what's the effect of that? What's the result of that? And one question I like to ask is books or podcasts?
I like a mix of both, actually. Books, I love getting into a book when I have time to actually sit and read it. But I listen to a lot of podcasts as well when I'm out and about, going to work, at lunch and things like that, where I find reading a book challenging. So I probably listen to a bit more podcasts than I read overall, but I've definitely got a healthy balance between them.
My final question, What is the last podcast you listened to, and who would you recommend it to?
It was actually the Staying In podcast. So they talk about they talk about board games. They talk about movies and a whole kind of range of things around those, comics and stuff like that, all of which apply to me. And I don't know, I think I recommend it to almost anyone that is into the kind of, I hesitate to call it a geek culture, but I suppose that is, a good umbrella term for it. Anyone into, your Marvel movies, comics, board games, and all the surrounding bits and bobs.
And if you're only into board games, but you're not so much into comics and movies these days, would you recommend it to me?
Yeah, I think there's still enough content in there. A good third of each episode is usually talking about a board game, the mechanics, why the guys on there like it, and them recommending it to people that might like similar type games.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Now, let's take a little bit longer. I mean, all of these questions are questionably quick. That's the reason that all that word is in there. But let me ask you, what is your first memory? How was your life growing up?
I had a good life growing up, best to be honest. I don't know what my first memory was. I can't remember anything that was particularly distinct. Although that is the first thing that I can remember all the way back. But
so I guess there's like 10 different things that it could possibly be.
Yeah, I'd have to probably sit down and with my eyes closed for a while to sort out which one of those probably came first. But
yeah, let's not bother with that.
Yeah. But no, I had a fairly normal growing up. I lived with my parents outside of town up in Aberdeen. So I came into, we drive into school and stuff in the mornings, which set me apart from some of the kids because I wasn't able to as easily go and see other kids and stuff.
Because you'd have to come a bit of a further distance, and you wouldn't be able to maybe play together after school.
Yeah, but that didn't really hamper us. It was just something that was always in my mind, like, oh, yeah, okay, let's get in the car to go and do this or do that. But one of the probably strongest memories for me is we did a lot of family gaming, and it's the typical family gaming. We played a lot of Monopoly, which is I think fairly typical for kids of my age. And we play a lot of Monopoly, and that got me into understanding the value of sitting around a table with other people and experiencing something through a board game.
It allows you a way of communication, and it allows, because just having free-form conversation can sometimes be quite challenging. Whereas if it's like, okay, we're all doing this, and Monopoly at its heart is a game about negotiation and auctions. I mean, sure, there's lots of randomness in what you're able to buy and whether you have to pay someone rent or not, but there's a lot to discuss, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I know a lot of people say that obviously, there is a heavy element of luck and bias in terms of, who goes first in Monopoly and what you roll determines how you're going to perform and stuff. But you're right. At the end of the day, there is elements in there which give it a very social aspect. Negotiating with your brother to get a key property is very challenging.
And so it would be the four of you, just the one sibling?
Yeah, just the one brother.
Okay, and so the four of you gathered together and you'd all play together, and this would be like a regular, I'm imagining, like multiple times a week, and taking because it is a long game, and for an adult to say, okay, I'm going to block off multiple hours to spend the time with my child, but it is interesting because if you think about it, it does have enough luck that a child could win. Because, frankly,
absolutely.
if us two were playing Catan with a couple of kids, unless we were giving them really good deals intentionally, there's no way that they would probably end up winning, I don't think. Just because,
Yeah.
like, it's far less likely. Whereas I think that's actually the amount of luck and can be an improvement because that's, oh, I might not have to pay anything. I skip over, yay! I
Yeah.
managed to skip over all your job properties.
Yeah, and we did have a good balance of that, to be fair. My dad was very much of the mind that, yeah, if you win, you win, fantastic. But he's not gonna, help you achieve that. Not overly. Mum was a lot easier to negotiate with, a lot easier to pull the heartstrings. And sometimes she probably gave us better deals than she should. But there was nothing wrong with that. She didn't favour either of us, so it was still a battle. But yeah, that was probably one of the first games that got us, around the table, and understanding the value there, which then served me well, later in life when, friends suggested, "Oh, do you want to go and play this or play that?" And I say, "Oh yeah, I've had a very positive experience from that before, and I want to try something different."
So, board games stayed with you pretty much all the way through school. It was like parts of your life, and then you went to university, or?
So I wouldn't. I don't know if I'd say that, to be honest. We did play a lot of Monopoly and stuff as family, but that was probably as far as it went. I didn't really play a lot of board games with other kids or anything like that. And then yeah, it was once we got into uni, it just opens up this whole new world of people and experiences that you obviously haven't had before. And at that point, I started playing some more board games with friends and really getting into just all sorts. There was all the stuff like Catan, Carcassonne, and etc. And I'm sure there was a dozen other games as well. But that
Ticket to Ride, like it sounds like you're getting all the modern classics that are now owned by Asmodee.
Absolutely, yeah. But that was a really good way of meeting new people as well, because again, you have that. If you meet someone new, then you have to find something in common. But if you're playing a board game, you have that commonality in front of you on the table, and you can talk through the game, and it really does, help with that connection.
And did you play mainly strategic games, or did you delve into partier type things like I don't know, categories or articulate or say anything or wits and wagers?
Yeah, no, there was a lot of those kind of games as well that we played. But a lot of the stuff that I probably played was more strategic, on a table game. Yeah.
And I don't know if there's anything you want to talk about your university time. Like, it sounds like I'm curious, what did you study there?
I studied aerospace systems engineering at Glasgow Uni. So my my
Sounds
burning
very
ambition,
impressive.
my burning ambition as a child was to become an astronaut. I had the space themed wallpaper, and we'd visited NASA before when we went to Florida and things like that, and that was the dream. So I went to uni to do aerospace engineering and then look for a job there. But what ended up happening was in the summers when I came back from uni, I ended up working with my dad because he owns an accountancy practice, and it was just something to keep me busy during summer and out of trouble. And I enjoyed it far too much to the point where that when I left uni, I've been an accountant ever since. So I don't regret it. I absolutely love what I do.
So how did that lean into embarking upon your business of rent, shuffle, and roll? I mean, are you still an accountant? Are you juggling the two jobs at once?
Yeah. Both of us are still full-time accountant, Jen's an accountant as well. You can imagine the interesting conversations we have. But no,
I'm imagining a lot of maths jokes.
Yes, there's far too many accounting puns, but we we do get tired of them eventually. But no, yeah, we're both still full-time accountants, with this being a kind of, evenings and weekends a job at the moment, which is partly why, my recent events, Blether at the start, maybe wasn't the longest. It's been taking up, a fair bit of our spare time.
No, that's totally fair. I mean, with a full-time job and you're doing all this on top of that, and so you said that you enjoyed playing games from Lazy Horse, and that was through the pandemic, and then afterwards, like, owner decided to stop off. So you were like, hey, let's do this thing, and let's do rent, shuffle, and roll.
You actually, you had a bit of history on the page there, Pez, at the bottom. So we initially just started an Instagram because we loved gaming and talking about the games we were playing. So that was Glenn for Gaming, because it's Glenn and Jen. And then, yeah, that developed into Rent, Shuffle and Roll over time.
And you can see a few of the games that are presumably your style of things. These are things that you enjoy playing 2 players, or sometimes when there's a few other people coming around. I mean, some of these look like they would be terrible at 2 players, to be honest.
Betrayal. Yeah, no, some of them are for 3-4 players.
That doesn't work.
No.
I can't.
Sheriff really doesn't work as a 2-player.
Like, how I can't even imagine a 2-player variant. That would be quite the design challenge, right?
Which one, sorry?
Sheriff of Nottingham, a 2-player variant. That would be a design challenge.
Yeah, I don't know if that's possible.
So, you love games, and you've decided to start this business. What's next?
A lot of work, I think, Bez. We're still finding our feet with things. So we launched at the same time that we first met at the UK Games Expo. That was our launch for the business. So we're just out of our 2nd month now, and
oh wow, you just launched in 2022.
Yes, yeah. So we're brand new.
I didn't realize it was quite so recent.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that might partly be due to we had a web designer help us with the website, and it maybe looks a bit more polished than people might expect us, since we're just new. We're really pleased with the site side of things, but what next, I suppose, is at least another 6 months of just trying to grow and keep finding our feet and make sure that it's working how we want, and that people that are actually renting from us are getting the service that they expect and are happy with it.
I guess before we talk about the future and what you're planning for it, I'd like to maybe talk about how you got your collection started, how you decided which games to buy, and maybe a little bit about how you decided that this was viable. Because as an accountant, I'm sure that you did a lot of behind the scenes, does this make financial sense? But then at the same time, I'm imagining that it is kind of being run as a hobby, where at least for the first couple of years, I mean, you're okay with it not necessarily making an income.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly won't be making enough income in its first year to support either of us, and that's fine. That was the reality of going into this business, and probably the reality of going into a lot of other businesses as well,
I hear that most businesses don't make a real income, like any income, within the first 2 years. I don't know if
you're drawing on my experience as an accountant here, Bez. So you'll have to stop me if I start boring you. But it depends the business. A lot of lifestyle businesses, like trades and things like that, can go straight into business and expect to take enough out of there to live.
What do you mean by trades? Like
joiners, sparkies, plumbers.
Okay.
And there's a number of other industries that are the same. But you're right. There's a lot of businesses that you start, and you might not expect anything significant out of them for a while. Like ours, we're not expecting it to be able to support us for years, which is fine. That's what we expected and planned for.
Yeah, I guess there's a massive difference between, okay, I'm a freelancer in an essential industry like being a plumber, or as you say, a joiner or electrician, compared to even like setting up a board game shop or setting yourself up as a game designer. I mean, that's a really challenging thing, or self-publisher.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's I think a difference in how those businesses operate, which causes that. So, things like our business, we have, base costs, and it becomes a matter of building a subscriber base to cover those and then, push us into profit. Whereas someone like a joiner, a tradesman, sure, they have some costs, but those are all related to actually doing the job. So, I think that's a kind of key.
So it's not a massive upfront cost, is basically what you're saying.
Yeah, that a lot of these guys have the skills and a lot of the tools they already need to do them. So,
and of course, in examples like that, it's actually going through that apprenticeship, which will have been the initial challenge and the initial monies. Potentially, you kind of need to invest that time, potentially like money for the education or whatever when you're going to college.
A lot of
them
have been in the trade a long time before they decide to set out on their own as well. But I suppose there is an applicable relevance to board games, because obviously we had a lot of board games before we decided to go into the rental business. I say a lot. We had maybe bordering on maybe 80 to 100 different games, which by some people's standard is not a lot at all, and by some people's standard is, a lot. But we then ended up buying a couple of collections when we knew that we wanted to take on renting.
So you just got it sounds like rather than select games piecemeal, saying, I want this game, it was like, oh, this person selling their entire collection, let's go for that, and let's just bulk buy, get a better deal on this. And
it was exactly that, because that, like you said, it gave us a far better deal per game than, sure, we might, and I don't think we've got a bad collection at all. We've got some fantastic games, but there are other games that we'd have probably curated differently if we had, bought them individually. But that is the hope for the future as well, as we grow. And we need more games to make sure there's enough selection, and we've got new titles and things that we will handpick those as we go now and add them.
Because you already feel like you have that critical mass, and behind you in this photo we've seen a nice library, and it looks like you've got it's actually, is that alphabetical order?
It is. They're alphabetical and in credit order, because the way we work, each game is ranked for credits based on its weight and size, and sometimes value, but it's mainly weight and size for shipping.
Because that's the key thing that's going to cost you money, right?
Exactly. Yeah. The heavier the box, it's not so much the bigger the box. The heavier the box, the more it costs us.
So, for example, we can see first and roll, it would be 2 credits, 221B Baker Street, which is quite a big box, it's 2 credits, and something like 5211, which is the size of 2 decks of cards, basically, it's 1 credit.
Yeah.
And presumably you're thinking very much about what can fit into that 2 kilo small parcel size via Royal Mail?
So we, we'll dive into the shipping side of things. Because you've gone there.
I'm interested.
When we first, we had no experience of sending things by mail, first of all. So I'll preface with that. Our inexperience.
Fine, everyone makes mistakes. It's all good.
So we knew that we wanted to do a kind of alpha test before we launched at the UK Games Expo, so that we didn't come home and then have to work out all the logistics of sending out our first games for the first time. So we tested out using Every, which was, as you can imagine, a disaster. You know, we had games that.
So Every is the rebranding of My Hermes.
Yeah.
That a lot of people felt maybe because of the way it worked, the delivery drivers tended to not treat the parcels with as much care as they would like.
Exactly.
To put it mildly.
And our experience was exactly that. You know, I mean, we came back with damaged parcels. You know, boxes that had been, you know, looked like someone had jumped up and down on them. A couple of them had like holes and stuff in them, and we were like, oh my god, you know, what are we going to do? So after that experience, we flipped over to using Yodel. Now, Yodel is a bit slower in terms of the actual delivery time, which has presented some issues to us, which we've been fixing. Hi, Tim.
Hi, Timmy.
Sorry, Timmy.
But yeah, Yodel. So is that what you're sticking with now, Yodel?
Yeah. But we haven't had the damage that we had with Every, which is the key part for us. We have had challenges with the delivery times, but that's just meant that we've changed, you know, how you receive and keep your parcels instead of, you know, changing to another provider. So that works very well for us.
I mean, there is the issue of heavier parcels, and I guess that Yodel is just providing a cheaper option compared to Royal Mail for those.
It's exactly that. It's exactly that. I mean, we know that the absolute best service we could probably get is using Royal Mail. You know, they take care of everything they ship, and you know, we know we're guaranteed a good service there. But so far with Yodel, we have not had a bad experience, other than the length of time that it takes for the
Have you considered using Royal Mail for parcels that are under 2 kilos?
Yeah, we have. We looked at getting like the challenge for us is that it's a return that we need to include as well, and we can't include or a return in the box unless we have a business account with Royal Mail, and that takes a bit of volume.
And the prepaid things, which I use, you get 1 week to send it back, which is obviously not enough time. I mean, if they could upgrade that to be like 6 weeks, then that, or like 5, that would be perfect.
That's exactly it. You know, if because a lot of the services have a 30-day return, which is still not long enough for us, because, you know, if you're ordering your games today, we'll take, you know, probably until tomorrow we'll package and put them out, and then they won't get with you. They won't get to you with Yodel until probably the 14th. You know, it can take up to a week, which is kind of crazy. But we've allowed for that, and that means that you keep them from the 14th to the 14th and then ship them back. So at the moment, what we've been doing is emailing.
And then when would I get my? But then I only get my new games once you receive the first lots of games.
No, so we've taken the. I suppose it is a slight risk, but the community is wonderful, and we don't really see it as a risk. We've taken the tack that if you signed up today, Bez, on the 6th, then you would always order your games on the 6th, and we would send them out, you know, the 7th and the 8th. So that means that there's a period of time where your new games are already in transit to you, and you've got your last month's games still, because you're playing out your full month.
I mean, this all sounds fantastic, and I must admit, like, sometimes looking at the things, I'm like, wait a minute, these games are really tiny. Is this game really worth 1/3 of the other thing? Because like I could, this is maybe me being a bit greedy, but like I know roughly the size of 22-1B Baker Street. I don't know, you could get like way more than 4 copies of 5211 in that space, and it would probably be a similar weight.
Yeah, absolutely. And the credit system is probably by no means perfect. There are a lot of games in. I say a lot. There are games that we need to adjust the credits and stuff for, because we want you to feel that you're getting a value out of what you're ordering each month. But at the same time, without making it so overly complicated, you know, in terms of the credits, you know, that you're buying, you know, at the moment, if you were to buy 4 credits, you would go and choose, you know, up to 4 games. If we change that to you get 8 credits and that they're valued all differently, it makes it a lot more complicated for the
because then you've
choosing
got
and everything.
something that, I mean, I guess unless you doubled everything and everything was an even number except some things were the ones, because
Exactly.
the one thing that it does slightly disadvantage, and the one thing that people are going to hold off on getting are going to be the tiny things like the sorts of games that I make, frankly. Because
So
if someone is thinking of getting a game about wee whimsical creature, like let's look at something that's actually comes in a box, a game about quickly grabbing creatures that are totally different and counting your beetroots. I can't imagine anyone wanting to get that for 1 credit, where compared to some of the other things that they could get. But then,
so we were worried about that as well, Bez, because we know the value in the small games as well. You know, they are small, but a lot of them pack a huge punch and, you know, are really fun to get on the table. But what we've actually been finding is that a lot of people have been ordering, you know, they've wanted this game, which is 3 credits. And so they've then gone and had a browse through the ones for that to fill up their order. And actually, I would say a majority of the orders that have gone out have at least had 1 or 2 1 credit games in them. Of the smaller variety. You know, some of the games, you know, like really like almost matchbox size ones have still been added to the orders, which we've been pleasantly surprised at and pleased with.
I mean, it is really interesting. I just wonder, again, this might be out with the. I'm aware that I'm basically asking for more for the same amount. I'm just wondering if there could be, something where there's stuff that goes to essentially half a credit, because that feels like for a lot of single deck games or matchbox sized games, would that be worth it? Looking through the website, I was really impressed because here you look at, okay, which category do I want? So, there's only one dexterity game. I didn't notice that time. What is it? Tokyo Highway. Okay, that's a quality game. But let's say we take that off and then we're like, okay, I really want to play some games on my own because this month, or maybe I just get more time on my own, whatever. And then I'm like, okay, I want to have something that takes up to 70 minutes, whatever. And then you've still got access to all this number and you can see it. And there's still just over 100 games to choose from. Not all of them are in stock, which means that those are the ones that are currently
out. Yeah, exactly.
out for someone else. But then if I'm like, oh, I don't know what this game is, let me check out what this game is. And then it'll give you a little bit of a description, which is obviously incredibly useful. Now,
it's funny as well. You point out the out of stock ones because those have disproportionately been in alphabetical order, just because that's how they're displayed on the site as well. But that's also why we want to add games continuously as well, because you know,
what do you mean
we don't want you to go on.
Like, would it be? I do wonder whether it would be worth automatically just having all the out of stock things at the end. Or alternatively, I do wonder whether rather than booking things just for this month ahead, whether you would, or maybe you do already do this because I don't have an account with you, have, hey, here's like a list of 20, 50 games that I generally am interested in. Please make up my order with some selection of these games, and then I'll have some elements of pleasant surprise. And you try to do the things from the top of the list as much as you can.
Yeah, we don't currently have that, but we've got in the works favorite list. So if you really wanted to play, I don't know, Everdell, for example, but it was out at the moment, then you can pop it on your favorite list and you'll get an email, or you will in the future get an email when it's back in, so you can rent it. And we're also wanting to add a random roll. So you would roll a dice on the site and it will just fill your order with games. And you can choose to see which games are coming, or you can choose to wait and see when they arrive. So that those are features planned for the future.
And if you do want to, borrow Everdell if you don't want to pay the money, but you're like, oh, I wonder what this is like, then you could get it just now because
Exactly.
it is in stock. And hello, Xate, it is lovely to see you. We're talking about board game rental. And of course, somewhere else that people could try things is Board Game Arena, where Xate works. But this actually, as we said at the start, gives you the opportunity to be around the table. I just want to encourage you. Like, my one bit of advice would be like, I used to love film. I don't know if you know this; it's now expired, sadly. And I got actual DVDs. I don't even have access to a DVD player anymore, to be honest. But yeah, my laptop doesn't even have a disk drive. But yeah, having DVDs come through the mail and then just saying, going through once and say, oh yeah, I want to add all of these. And then there's some elements of randomness in there. And then they give you things from the top of the list. So I could say, yeah, you know what, that I'm interested in watching that one day. And that I'm interested in watching that one day. And with the things in an order, like the TV series, of course, they need to give those things to you in that order. But then the other thing, it's just, okay, what's the first thing from the top that's actually available? And yeah, I do think that that would be something that would make me then also taking away the hassle of signing up each month to check out what's going on.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, no, and it's definitely food for thought because we've got a kind of a dream feature list, which is as long as my arm that we want to add on. So
but
I
how
will,
small is the writing? I mean, as long as your arm might be very short, if the writing is like that size.
Yeah, it's got at least a couple dozen things on it that we want to add and improve and stuff. And like I said, we're 2 months in. We've got a long journey ahead of us to do that.
I mean, it sounds fantastic. And Xate wants to say, you can play BGA around a table with friends as long as one of you is premium. I'm not exactly promoting that over physical gaming, just saying you could. That's totally fair. And yeah, having played Ticket to Ride around a table, and then we, like, after a bit, I was like, yeah, why are we doing this? This is just sad. And like, we were on a train trip, but then we just got out something that actually fitted the table space. You know what I mean? But yeah, looking ahead, actually, let me ask you a little bit about your numbers, if you're willing to share. How has your first couple of months been? How many subscribers do you have? And yeah, how has it compared to your expectations?
Yeah, so we're coming up on just about 60 subscribers now, which we're happy with so far. It's been maybe a bit slower than we expected, but it's still meeting the goals that we'd set and we'd planned for, which is the kind of main thing. I think there's a lot of work to do behind the scenes because it seems to be it's obviously a fairly unique service. There's everyone knows that some cafes and things like that do local rental that you can go in, pick a game, and maybe take it home. But I don't think a lot of people know that there's a service out there that you can just rent board games by mail. So I think that's one of the main challenges we're facing. It's getting the word out and people finding the service in the first place.
I guess that promotion and advertising and marketing is just a key thing, no matter what you're doing, and getting that awareness out there. Have you had any feedback along the way? Have you had any surprises along the way?
Yeah, I mean the biggest surprise for us was the challenge with shipping so far. Those challenges with the timeline of getting games to people through Yodel was probably our first big surprise, because we'd sent out all of our games and we tried to make it as easy as possible with the return label in the box. What we didn't realize is that those expired within 30 days. So that was the first big surprise. We pivoted pretty quickly to emailing new labels out to everyone that had that, and that'll be the.
And you managed to
reference point
cancel
for-
the old labels and get the money back.
Yeah. It was.
So how do you do it now? Does Yodel charge extra for longer?
So there's a small extra charge per label because they now have to print it off in the shop, but then that saves us printing it here. So it's probably about the same cost to us.
But I mean, for the longer expiry.
No, so they don't. There's no actual longer expiry. So what we'll do is about 3 weeks into your rental, we'll email you the return label, and it then still has an expiry of 30 days, but it should obviously cover the return date that you've got.
So people do need to have a printer and.
No, so all of the, or a lot of the Yodel shops have a printer in there, so they will just bring in the barcode on their email and scan it, and that'll allow them to return the parcel.
Oh, so you have to go into a shop that's part of the Yodel, and then you bring in the box, and then you say, "Hey, this is the thing," and so yeah, that's an interesting model.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much for explaining that. And what can you say about the future since we got here? It's like we've had a fairly on-topic discussion.
Yeah, it does. The future will be. I think we need to do a lot of, like I said, awareness and things like that, and that will be a challenge. But we've got a lot of features that we want to roll out that will improve the service, and things like, we think the whole service lends itself well to an app. You can do the whole thing probably through your mobile phone, which a lot of people will find handier and much easier for things like the returns and stuff like that as well. So we're looking at stuff like that into next year, and a number of other bits and bobs as well.
But presumably keeping that website for functionality for anyone who can't do the original.
Absolutely.
And it is really interesting because I must admit I was having a wee look thinking, you know what, there's a lot of these habit games that I would kind of, on a professional level, I would really like to just look through and read the rules and get to understand them so that I could make better kids games. But I don't need to have these games, if you know what I mean. I don't know if I even necessarily need to play them, but like actually having the bits and going through myself and if I can, obviously that's ideal. But yeah, it seems really exciting what you're doing, and I wish you all the best for the future. And just because I said I'd get there, 2 quick questions at the end. Firstly, what's your favorite memory of Glasgow?
Probably ones that I can't tell you, Bez, on a live stream.
That is totally fair.
But it sounds like it's university,
and people.
Yeah.
And the other question I want to ask is, if someone was, what is your favorite game for you out of everything that you've got? I mean, I assume, well, all your games are in your online collection. So what is your favorite game for you?
Our favorite to play with friends is Betrayal at House on the Hill. We just love playing Betrayal. Different, almost every time you get a different scenario. It plays different. It's obviously got that random feature of the new rooms in the house and everything. And yeah, we just love the atmosphere that it has around the table and the presence it's got on the table as you build out this weird and wonderful house and then try and murder each other in it.
Well, one person's trying to murder you, and but so you're all about the thematic, about the storytelling, and thank you for that lovely chat, and also thank you in the comments, Xate, for moderating. I do appreciate that. And as we wrap up, let me firstly ask you to give us the question of the day. Question of the day. Here's a little question before we go on our way. What would you like to ask me and anyone watching?
Oh, it's a big responsibility, I feel.
I mean, I did ask you this question, right? Before we started.
I know, but I've not given it any thought. What is it that's going to be drawing you specifically to Thailand, Bez? Because I find that really interesting.
Okay.
Your move.
I'm trying to think of a way to make it more applicable to other people. So, yeah, I am going to answer that. But for everyone else, maybe, would you go to Thailand? And if you would go to Thailand, what draws you to it? Or if you would not go to Thailand, what makes you not want to go to Thailand? So, for myself, I've decided that I will definitely go to Thailand to emigrate. And the quick answers that I give people are, frankly, it's cheaper, cost of living. I like the warmth. I would like a bit of a breeze, so my windows are all closed, but I'll be opening them up after this to kind of stay alert and plow through some illustration. And thirdly, yeah, I like the food. And fourthly, which I don't often mention, I do want to adventure and see a bit more of the world, but that I could go anywhere for that. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, there are smaller things. Like I know someone there who is already in Thailand, and I've checked out in Bangkok. There's at least 3 board gaming shops. There are people who are making board games, although someone told me, oh yeah, there are people making board games, but they are at the kind of level of, hey, everything is amazing, and not really critiquing themselves so much, and not being quite as analytical as you'd want to be on the international game space. But it would be, yeah, going there. I think that I hope that goes most of the way towards answering the question.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I think you'll have a fantastic time over there. There's so much to see and do in that part of the world as well, and especially
Absolutely.
the culture and the food and stuff. So yeah.
And I mean, going into the sea and swimming in the sea and then coming out and it being warm enough that you don't need to worry. Okay, maybe you dab a towel, but even if you don't have a towel, like I remember one time I was like literally in my shorts and t-shirts and then went into the sea and then I came out and it was just kind of drip dry as I walked over to where I was staying, and I was basically dry by the time I'd walked 5 minutes.
Yeah, you can't do that over here. You won't last long at all.
Yeah, you'd probably get hypothermia or something. I mean, maybe there's like 6 weeks of the year where you might be able to survive.
Yeah, well, 6 days maybe.
You might be right. And at this point, Sate says that sounds horrible. I mean, I love wandering around and seeing the street food, and you can get places where you can get a good meal for 75 pence, which is just amazing. I mean, most places aren't quite that cheap, but you can get an apartment in a nice place with a swimming pool and everything for like less than 300 quid. And if you've got if you are working with people internationally, that is a massive advantage. And Sate says, I meant the warmth, not the cheap good food. I assumed you meant the drip drying after being swimming. That's
yeah, I thought you meant that too. Yeah.
Yeah. But moving on, let's talk about over to what you're up to. You can share button if you want to. Today, I'm going to get a figurative bucket ton of illustration done for a game about selecting 7 cards, speedily searching for synergies. It's going to be fairly abstract watercolor art, but then there's going to be icons that are in black with marker pen for the bits that you need to find, because imagine it's a drafting game, but some cards might give you bonuses for how many eyes the other creatures have or how many legs, for example. So those things that you're actually looking for have to be clearly shown compared to the rest of the artwork. So I just want that slight separation. So like the creatures will be mainly in watercolor and maybe the mouth will be in marker pen, like self-colored, but then the eyes and the monocle and then the arms and legs will be in thick black. So you'll kind of, those are the bits that I'm actually got to pay attention to, if you know what I mean. And I'm hopefully going to do that super quickly as I can, and then I'm going to have something to eat, get showered, and go to celebrate the birthday of my good friend McCall. And that is what I'm up to the rest of the day. What are you up to today?
I have a bunch of stuff we need to get through for Rent, Shuffle and Roll, which will be exciting. And then I think we'll probably go for a walk in the afternoon and chill out in the evening. Yeah. Not cram-packed, but enough.
I mean, it's important to get yourself out there, get your body moving, and have this alone time with your loved ones. So I think that sounds like a super lovely day, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you for coming on. If anyone in the comments wants to share anything, then please feel free to do so. We have talked about so much. We've talked about a wee bit about Aberdeen and about being inspired by Lazy Horse and painting miniatures and what a good game is, like being simple to get to, but to get into, but then having the depth and more to learn and surprises along the way. And discoveries, maybe because you discover a strategy or you discover a new ramification for the rules that you weren't expecting. Talking about the Staying In podcast, talking about Rent, Shuffle and Roll itself and how it came to be, early memories of Monopoly, moving on to things in the days of university when there were memories that you dare not share on a live stream, which I do appreciate depending on the tone of that, because I try to keep a fairly family-friendly role. Its own, although
not as in they're not family friendly, as in they're probably most embarrassing for me, making a fool of myself.
That's fair. So like maybe falling over or doing stupid things.
Possibly, very possibly.
That's totally fair. It has been a delight, and I would love to have you on again, maybe in a few months once things have evolved, and talk about how things are going.
That sounds great, guys.
For anyone out there, you know where to find me. I am Stuff by Bez everywhere, stuffbybez.bigcartel.com, where I've put on some more stuff onto that site. Instagram and twitter.com/stuffbybez, twitch.tv/stuffbez, youtube.com/stuffbez, and stuffbybez.com/discord if you want to go there and check out my streams tomorrow. I'm planning to do a solo playthrough of Dice Hospital. We'll see how I get on with that. And let me actually... I can't remember. Oh, yeah, I'm going to Alan and Charlie Paul's place next week, which I'm really excited by. And so we might have them. And also I'm going to launch my Kickstarter next week that I was planning to do this week. But if you want to check out my lovely guest, Glenn, where would you like to be found? Where would you like people to check you out on the corners of the internet?
Yeah, so the best place to check us out would be on Instagram, Rent, Shuffle and Roll. You can message us on there if you've got any questions, of course. And we have our lovely website at rentshuffleandroll.co.uk.
And I don't know why it's taking a bit of time to post, but there we go. And those are the links you can check out, rentshuffleandroll.co.uk. Check that out. Thank you very much. Share, spread the word. It has been a delight to have you with us. Thank you everyone in the comments for the generally lovely chat. And thank you, Xate, for moderation. I do appreciate it. And for now, lots of love. And the only thing left to say, I guess, is bye, 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 bye. This is goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is the goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, bye, everyone. Have a lovely day. Bye, bye, Glenn.